Good morning. It's great to actually be with you this morning. From time to time, I get the opportunity to come to business breakfasts and various occasions like this. And in fact, about a month ago, I was sitting at a table trying to get my breakfast done just before I was invited up. And there was a gentleman sitting next to me, a very big, burly man. And the waiter came around and was handing out the various plates of food. And he said to the waiter, "I actually have a special request this morning. I want to make sure that my eggs, I want one of my eggs, really runny and underdone, and I want the other one overcooked and nearly like rubber. And the toast needs to be, crisp and blackened, and the coffee needs to be cold, and I need it served with a frown on your face." And I'm sitting there thinking, boy, this is a great start to a early morning breakfast. And the waiter sort of gave him a puzzled look and said, "Well, I'll take that order back to the kitchen. We'll see how we go with that. I'm not sure we'll be able to do it just like you ask. It's a bit complicated." And this burly guy, without the hint of a smile on his face, said, "Well, that's exactly how you served it to me last time, so I'm sure you'll have no problems at all." Hopefully you've got a little bit more enjoyment in your meal this morning. Guys, I'm just going to share very briefly. It's a privilege to just talk to you about a little about our story. I think small business, and I understand most of us are in small business this morning. I think the truth is, no matter how big my organisation gets, it's always just going to be a collection of small businesses. And so I relate very well to your experience, and of course they all have to start from somewhere. And I actually liken running a small business a little to the game of snakes and ladders. Sometimes it feels like it all hangs on the random roll of a dice. From one day to the next, you can have a windfall sale or a great opportunity that you didn't plan for, and it's like climbing a ladder that just escalates or accelerates your position, and then your day can turn on a dime, can't it? It can flip around in an instant. You can roll the dice again and answer the phone when you shouldn't have, and it's your long-term loyal employee of only 5 staff who's resigning, and that's it. It puts you back in the soup, and it's like falling all the way down the tail of a snake. And I think sometimes it feels like that success is about luck or chance. And you know the old cliche that the harder you work, the more successful you get, or the luckier you get. And I think there's some truth in that. But I also think there are some predictable elements of all of our journey. We might be in different businesses and fighting for a different cause. But I think there are some predictable elements on the journey that we can map and therefore we can prepare for, that are certainly going to help us prepare for the journey. And so I'm not going to go the long way around. I'm going to give you just a couple of quick thoughts in terms of the Back in Motion story. Interestingly, it never really started for me with a great passion to be in business. In fact, all through my schooling years, all I was really determined to do was to become a medical doctor, because I thought that would be my ticket into the developing world. And from a very young age, I was just consumed with the thought of wanting to work amongst the very needy and the very poor within our world. I can remember as a young kid, when the cartoon connections would come on a Saturday morning, and those 1980s adverts of the young Ethiopians and, World Vision playing their message on loop. I can remember being so attentive to those messages, such that I thought that would be a great way to live my life. And so I actually worked extremely hard. I'm not particularly smart, but I worked extremely hard to try and get into medical school, because I thought that would be a great way to contribute. And I missed out on medical school, and so I found myself one day enrolled in a physiotherapy degree. To be fair, I'd never been to a physiotherapist before. I didn't know what they did. I didn't know quite how it all worked. So I cut a deal with the dean of the school, and I said, if I got the marks I needed by the end of first year, can I get into medicine? And then I'd be back on course. And they conceded that would be a reasonable thing. And so I worked really hard in first year of my physio degree. I got the marks I needed, but by that point had fallen in love with physiotherapy, and I think it's a wonderful profession with a lot of opportunities, most of which I think are all about finding ways of contributing to others, and I'm sure in your businesses you will have that opportunity as well. The really exciting part, I think, is that I never wanted to be in business. I used to think that was the dark side of community life. And the irony, of course, is I'm in business, I'm an owner today, and in fact we're helping facilitate other people own businesses. But really the passion and the reason and the modelling around what initially launched our business was true to the cause that I had as a young boy watching the cartoons, catching those World Vision ads. It was because somehow we thought we could use our business to serve a greater purpose. And actually my point in just sharing that is to encourage you that I think in small business, more than in probably any other opportunity, you have the ability to live for your cause. And in doing that, that will sustain you through the roller coaster rides and the various challenges that we know are par for the course. The moment it becomes just about the business, I think you dilute the essence of probably what attracted you in the first place. And so a little into the story, I'll be excited to share just how this has come full circle for us, because we have in fact been able to build a business that is driving back to what is one of my most important passions, and that is working with the needy and the destitute. As Alistair mentioned in the introduction, all businesses have to start somewhere. Mine happened to be a single car carport in the year 2000. And it probably looks even better in that photo than it did the day we launched it, because I just had my best man who had stood next to me at my wedding only a few months earlier come around and over a weekend hammer up a bit of cladding and framework. And actually, if I showed you more photos, the truth is we never even finished it. And for 6 months I managed the patients who were so gracious to support my first little practice in exposed wires and and unclad side walls. There was no reception, there was no toilet, there was no waiting area. In fact, people would be parking in the cars down the street, and on a wet day I'd be running out with an umbrella. And the only reason I started this practice, to be fair, was I didn't think the rest of the industry was doing it the way it should be done. And it's not that I thought it should all happen in a carport, but it was around the philosophy of what clinical excellence or true health was about. And I think when I reflect back on that very early year, which was a humble start, I don't mind admitting it, I think one of the big turning points was that for whatever reason I had been determined that it would be the beginning of a network of 100 other practices. And so I operated this small little practice with the mindset that it was one of 100. And so my encouragement to you today is, at the very beginning of your journey, or wherever you are, we get the chance to reset. Operate with the seeds of excellence from the very beginning. Because if you plant apple seeds, what do you get? Apples. You don't get pumpkins from apples. And if you plant seeds of excellence, the truth is your business will grow with that paradigm, that mentality, that expectation of excellence. And so even though it was arguably overcapitalizing and I was thinking bigger than I was and acting with a level of quality or expertise or talking about it with a level of scale that was still really quite ridiculous at that stage, it's interesting how those things become prophetic of what your business can become. And so I encourage you to plant those seeds of excellence even in the smallest of businesses. Today, some 13 years later, it's really exciting to introduce you to the BIM Health Group, the group that started in the garage. And that actually is part of our DNA. Kane's with me today, and we probably would tell that story pretty regularly amongst ourselves to keep us grounded, to realise that at the end of the day, these things have started from a very earthly beginning, and so we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But the Back in Motion Health Group today is a network of 60 locations. We are by far the largest physio group in the country. We're certainly the fastest growing. And we have over 350 staff, and that's a pretty compelling wave through the industry of what is otherwise a niched or boutique little sector of mainstream healthcare. And it's interesting, after 3 or 4 years of operating 4, 5 and 6 of these practices by myself, the concept of franchising emerged as an opportunity. And actually, it was the last thing I wanted to do. Everything within me screamed and rebelled and kicked against the notion of franchising healthcare. I was a conservative, fairly traditional thinking, low risk profile physiotherapist. All we really know is how to care for people, not how to build business models, particularly scalable ones. And the notion of franchising a personal healthcare service that's not widget, not commoditized. There's no standard price point. It's all about the interaction and relationship from one practitioner to a client sounded incredibly difficult. And it was many years of kind of kicking against it before I realised it probably was the only option that gave the real benefit to our profession, and that is for them to own their own practice, but not necessarily be in business by themselves. And so we went on the journey of franchising, and I'm really pleased to say that despite the temptations that have come along the way, we are still owned by physiotherapists, and I think that's really important. We are owned by physiotherapists in Australia. We haven't sold out to the big guys or gone down any of the roll-up pathways that so many other large and growing organisations go through. I think that keeps us nimble, it keeps us reactive to the customer, the client, the patient, to make sure that we are always reminded that we only exist to serve them. Our growth has been an interesting experience. Growth is a double-edged sword. I'm sure you would understand that, with that comes the thrill and the adrenaline and the excitement of new resource and being able to innovate and create new pathways into the industry. But likewise comes the challenge of having to carry a burden that Sarah's very capably demonstrated. There is a challenge with having to deal with the rapid growth. For the last 8 years, and we've been franchising now for 8 years, we have had between 30 to 40% growth year on year, right through the GFC and well and truly into our current year. And so there is a wrestling with that we have to deal with, because what's the greatest enemy of growth is your quality, is your excellence. And so we have to make sure that we stay very sensitive to that. We would consider the greatest point of difference within the Back in Motion Health Group to be something quite intangible. It's not our marketing systems, it's not our equipment, it's not the way we fit out our practices. It can't be our brand in the first instance, because like anybody, you have to build something that differentiates you before your brand carries value. These are all things that come after the fact. I think the point of difference that we have brought to the table of the healthcare industry that has been so responsible for our explosive growth is a way of thinking. It's actually a culture amongst physiotherapists. And I say this to encourage you that whatever business you are in, no matter how same you feel like you are right now, the challenge to find a differentiator is critical. You must have that if you want to get out of the garage and into the next stage. And for us, it was actually looking at all the clinical research, it was looking at all the evidence that helps people get better and finding a different way to impact our patients. And that often is a change that just happens between the ears of physiotherapists. It's not necessarily an innovative piece of equipment. And so we have spent years and years developing what we call results for life, which is actually a new way of defining healthcare. For so long, traditional models of health have said that if you are free of pain or free of injury, that somehow that equates to being healthy. And so physiotherapists in particular have been very good at just treating your injuries and getting you back to whatever state you were in before you were injured. The truth is, guys, that is not health. That is not wellness. That is not peak performance. That is not you performing at your best. That is you just settling for a reasonable state. And so within the Back in Motion Health Group, we have been determined to redefine health as being the best you can physically be, as opposed to just being uninjured or being not sick. And that is a fundamental difference. And because of that, that has opened a whole lot of new thinking and new pathways and new conversations within mainstream medical sectors. And we are getting more and more opportunities for influence through that approach. We fortunately have won a couple of awards along the way, which has certainly built some credibility for our brand. And I just want to encourage you that it's good to be strategic and it's good to be ambitious. It's good to have an end goal that you want to chase, because they are the things that will keep you certainly focused through the hard times and the very challenging moments. I'm just going to bring this to a pretty rapid close here. The Back in Motion Health Group has built a platform on which we have been able to spawn multiple other businesses. And I think if you're creative and innovative and thinking about all of the new opportunities in front of you, what you'll find is that success breeds success. And you'll be able to use various other things in your toolkit to help you leverage in multiple different ways. And really, if I just bring it full circle to one of my opening thoughts, which was around the notion of I first didn't even want to be in business. In fact, what I wanted to do was to be in the developing world, working amongst those very worthy causes and the very disadvantaged. One of the greatest thrills of being able to take your business, a small business that you are passionate and creative and energetic around, is to turn it back into an engine or a vehicle that can impact the cause that you are most living for. And so the Back in Motion Health Group has founded the SOS Health Foundation, which is taking physiotherapists all over the country into communities of disadvantage on a pro bono basis. And I just get excited when we think that we can be compassionate capitalists. We can use our businesses to in fact fund the very thing that you are most passionate about. And that's an opportunity that small business owners have every day. So on that note, I'll hand it back to you, Alistair, and thank you very much.